Host.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Not too bad, Richard. How about you?
Good. Yeah, we're probably going to start in about 4 minutes, but
Cool.
we're just sort of passing the time as we wait for people to come in. How are you doing?
Not too bad. It's still very warm here, but yeah, just life goes on. How about you in New York?
It's getting a little cooler, but nothing substantial. Yeah.
I had a question or a request for this one.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would be interested in is the legitimate grievances that the Iranians had or developed against the U.S. Because I know by the time the 79 revolution came around, there was a lot of there were a certain amount of anti-Americanism, or at least against the government, that of which Americans were pretty much ignorant of.
Yeah.
Like Mossadegh in '53. I know that's outside of the scope of this one, but if it exists.
Right. I was going to say, basically what I was going to say is that, yeah, that's sort of out of the scope of this one. Actually, by the time that Reza Khan ends, um, uh,
I think she. The
yeah,
question
the
from
time the
Mark
Reza
as well.
Khan ends, sorry, in 1941, the United States is actually seen as a third party, because there's the Soviets on the one hand, Soviets and the Russians before them, and the
Yeah.
British on the other, who are seen as the two dominant imperialist powers
Mhm,
in
mhm.
Persia, and so they received a significant amount of antipathy. But the Americans, similar to the Nazis, and we're going to talk about that as well, are seen as third parties, groups that don't have imperialist ambitions on Iran. Now, that fundamentally changes when the American CIA assists the British MI6 in the performance of Operation Ajax in 1953, right? The
Mhm.
removal of Mossadegh and the reinstatement of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the son of this man, Reza Shah Pahlavi. So, increasingly, the United States takes over Britain's position as the dominant imperial power in Iran during the reign of Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, and there's a number of grievances that occur during that period that lead up to the Islamic Revolution, and then because the Americans were the supporters of that prior regime, they're the enemies afterwards. But the thing is that, as I said, in this period, that's really not the view that Iranians have towards Americans. One of the things we pointed out in episode 42 was that Persians actually saw what Americans represented with their ideas about self-determination, their ideas about decolonization, especially those uttered by Wilson during the 14 points, to actually be supporters in an indirect way of Iranian liberation from the imperialist powers. So it was actually a very different impression of America. And I think a lot of the negativity in the post-Islamic Revolution period is that the United States basically was demonstrated to not believe in the tenets that it stated that it believed in. And that sort of loss of idealism sort of cut deeper than if the United States had sort of entered in as an imperialist from day one.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.